You are the boss of your guru. And maybe that doesn't hit you quite right, but the truth is, you are the boss of your guru because you decide if that guru remains in your life or not. Years ago, I had a guru in yoga, and I was studying with him for quite a few years. And what I noticed, there's definitely a sense of the guru holding himself as the teacher. And I feel like if we're searching for a guru, for someone to lead us into a practice or philosophy that we want to learn more about, that there are times when it's absolutely appropriate to seek out a teacher. But in my years of attending yoga retreats, attending the course that was provided by this guru, and studying, I saw interesting things before my eyes. When people are seeking a teacher, they need to hold that person as a teacher. But what I saw was women who were seeking a personal relationship with that teacher, going beyond the traditional teacher-student relationship. There were students who wanted, I think, to be the favorites, and there certainly were some who were favored by this particular guru. It was very obvious. But you see, there are also women who in some ways kind of throw themselves at the teacher in a way that makes the teacher understand they are open to something more, that there's almost a quality of seductiveness in the conversations, in the body language, and you can see that. For me, and I think the wisest thing actually to hold in your own mind when you are seeking a teacher and when you have a guru or teacher is to decide what you're actually looking for in a teacher and identify the qualities that you are looking for in a teacher. Identify what things are important to you in terms of the behavior of the teacher, the manner in which the teacher is teaching, and also look at the history of this teacher and his relationships with students. Because if you have been in the yoga world at all in the last 25 years, we've seen multiple gurus falling, if you will, to having affairs with their students. And most of it is usually that, in some way or another. It tends to be sexual. There are certain boundaries that each of us have when we look for a teacher, certain things that we're comfortable with and certain things we're not particularly comfortable with. Now, for me, when I was learning yoga started to open up to me in a way where I was connecting much more with my own deeper self. It became not just the physical practice or a practice to increase my focus, to reduce stress, and to strengthen my mind and body, but it also had a spiritual element to it. So as my heart started to open to my own self and things like greater forgiveness dawned and greater awareness dawned and greater insight began to dawn as well. I started to understand more and more clearly what I needed from this particular teacher if I was to remain there. My take is that, and my own personal boundary is that if I am learning something that is godly and spiritual from a teacher, that teacher would hold the integrity of that office, if you will. And it's really interesting because I've even read in the Bible where it said that not all people should be teachers because teachers are held to a higher standard, and rightly so if they're going to be teaching. Teachers are held to a higher standard, and we, as the students, have a right to expect that from a teacher. And we also have the right to, in some ways, speak those boundaries to our teacher by our actions. And this is how you are the boss of your teacher, because when my teacher had his, let's call it a little downfall there, the particular category in which that occurred really made me feel like there was a huge double standard. There was also a lack of integrity with what was being spoken, what was being taught, and what was being done. Now, honestly, this kind of thing has been happening since the beginning of time. However, those of us who have these boundaries in place can speak through our actions when gurus act in this way. How do we do that? Well, we do that by stepping back. I mean, it was a disappointment because I held my teacher in high esteem. And personally, I felt that those kind of behaviors were maybe beneath him since he was married. And clearly, my assessment was incorrect. When you have a teacher that's teaching you for years, breaking that teacher-student connection, there's some sadness there, because I, for one, will say that there were a lot of really good things that were learned for my own personal evolution in that environment. But again, there was always kind of that undercurrent of those who wanted preferential treatment, those who wanted more of his attention, and that was not what I was after. But I do think that when a teacher has people kind of parading themselves in front of them, and granted, I'm not saying this is the majority of students, but there are students who are wanting something more and fall in love with their guru, and all of a sudden, from feeling the student-teacher relationship traditionally, those lines get blurred. So I'm not placing the blame on any one party. I'm just saying that these things that occur are the result of an unhealthy dynamic that slowly can be growing in that student-teacher relationship. So if you are considering having a teacher, hiring a teacher, so to speak, because you really are hiring them, you have to remember that you are the boss of your guru, and that you have your own set of circumstances that you are looking to have met, your own set of personal integrity that this student-teacher relationship must fall within, or else it cannot exist. And we need to be the ones that say no to this, because those gurus, if they don't get paid, if they don't get supported when they are doing things that are not at all integrous, then how do we as students expect a healthy teacher-student relationship where there is respect for each side, where teachers respect us as students and the students respect teachers as teachers, and we each remain in our own space, not crossing over into friendship, not crossing over into favoritism, not crossing over into trying to create a personal relationship, not taking the friendliness of the teacher as something more than that, or falling in love with your guru, and then that just gets framed over your attendance in the courses, that gets framed over your conversations, your connections, and we just really have to be careful. We have to be careful. As women, we need to be clear. We need to have our own sense of self-respect, and we need to be willing to look at a student-teacher relationship that we're willing to enter in and say, this is a finite relationship. I'm here to learn from this person until this person stops telling me things that I want to learn and am interested in learning. We can stay in that traditional relationship if it's healthy. But the truth is, we can often outgrow what a teacher is trying to teach us. We may have different interests. The divine of our own inner self may want us to be directed into a different direction, guided. Every teacher has a season with you, but it doesn't mean a lifetime. Learn from people what you can learn from them, but never be afraid to move on. Never be afraid to ask yourself, is this really nourishing me? Is this really what I need? Or is this just something I'm used to? Is this just a community that I want to be a part of? Because that's when the lines get blurred and when we aren't really serving our own selves. And it's our responsibility as students who are hiring gurus to understand what we want to learn and to keep track of that, to participate in the relationship in a respectful and healthy way. If things seem to be going in a direction where that can't be sustained, then it's time to walk away. No one teacher can teach you everything except for the Almighty. And that is where I ended up. Feeling like the one I can always trust, the one I can always depend on, the one on whose truth is indisputable, the one who is preaching peace and forgiveness, the one whose words to me are nourishing, it's God. And I got to a point where that was what I needed. And so when I look at my path of learning, of gurus, of yoga, and just of personal development, I see that each thing did have its time. Each thing had its purpose, its season in my life. But I am tremendously grateful now for the urgings that I received during certain periods of my life to redirect me. And each time I was redirected to something that was more appropriate for where I was in my own personal development. Feeling like I wanted to give my full self to the practices, to my evolution, to my connection with self, to my self-discovery, to my return, to my true self. In order to open my heart fully, there was only one that I could open my heart to that I knew would not trample on it, who would not bring this sense of disappointment to me. And although, I'm grateful for it now, because where I am now and how I connect with God, how I hold divine in my life is so beautiful. It feels so right to me, for me. It is such a beautiful expression of harmony with the divine, unity with the divine. And I just love watching my life evolve and change in the most beautiful ways. What I would say in conclusion is, if you need a teacher, if you want a teacher, know what you want to learn and seek that out. Remember that you are hiring your guru, as earthly and cut and dried as that sounds. It is true. Make sure that you're getting what you're paying for. Give yourself to the learning process without crossing lines. And if lines are getting crossed on the other side, always be willing to walk away. Take what you learned, take what was good, and hold on to that and move on to your next step. Because this is the way that you can experience your own revelations in life about God, about yourself, about your connection, and do it with true joy, and do it with a clear conscience. And just do it with an appreciation for the meaning and purpose that comes from your every effort and from your every moment of surrender. I hope this was helpful. Take care.